All right, I think we're live. And I just wanted to start by saying that I've been showing some tech recently, which would be really cool. And today I'm going to be showing you something that became necessary because the laundry room in my building is closed for no reason. We have no idea why. They haven't told us, and I don't know where to do laundry. I got the apartment in this building so that I could do laundry inside of the building, and if you don't let me do that, then like it's kind of like what's the point? So I needed to find a new solution to do laundry, and I wanted to show you what I got to do that. So I did a lot of research on how I could potentially wash clothes. I actually used to wash clothes in my sink in my other apartment. I actually used to have a bucket or a basin or whatever you could put some clothes in. Nothing really large, maybe some shirts, underwear, socks, things like that. Um, but I eventually just wised up and started going to the laundromat that was literally around the block. It was 24 hours. It was like kind of silly of me not to do that. But anyway, I actually don't know where the laundromats are around in the neighborhood because I've been here for years now and only used the room that was downstairs. So I kind of wanted to show uh, what I've decided on, which there are like and it's specifically for washing machines because like I could dry clothes. Um, by hang drying them. I've always actually had a rack for a very long time. So, so yeah, let me just show you what I got. I gotta move this over here. All right. So, what I got was this thing, which we'll talk about how cumbersome it is in a minute. But this thing is a Kofo Han, something or other. I don't know. The link is down in the description of the video, and it is not a washing machine in the traditional sense. It's really an agitator. It agitates the water. Um, and basically, what you do is I'll show you, kind of demonstrate it in a minute. But you have this motor on top here, and then you have this spinner on the bottom, and the spinner spins the water, gets some clothes, moving around, and it also has a timer attached to it. Right. So the timer you can set for 15 minutes, and it'll go off and wash the clothes, quote unquote. I've used it a couple of times, so I can explain a little bit more about how I feel about that. So what you need to do is you need to get a bucket, and I actually had to purchase a bucket after buying this because I was like, oh well, the thing that I was expecting to do with this was actually you could get up to 8 gallons with this thing. But I originally started with this. So this is just a waste paper basket. Just as long as there's no holes or anything in the bottom. And I've had this for a while without, worrying about, washing anything. Just for like things that have been wet that you would have to like put in there and just hold, because like maybe like damp towels before you're able to get them, dry or whatever. I would put them in here, or for my freshly deliveries, I put the ice stuff in here. So anyway, I did use this, and actually this works really well. And I'll explain that in a minute because the bucket that I purchased is larger. Looks like this. This is an 8-gallon bucket. And the reason that that bucket is a little bit better than this one is actually because of this ribbing. So this ribbing here is stopping the way that this device is supposed to be attached to the bucket. So let me actually show you on the waste paper basket how it gets attached. So you put this thing in here, okay, and you have these like little handle things that are like, they move in and out. So you put this just like that, okay, so you have this like this hook over here. And what you need to do is you need to take these things and shove them in here, just like that, and they'll like click, and it will almost look like that you're gonna break the thing, okay? And now this thing's pretty much in there. Sure, it does this only because the walls of this aren't so good. It does a little bit of this, but it won't really go up and down. Like it's locked in there. And that's really great. Because when this thing starts moving, the agitation goes on, and this thing can move a lot, which is what happens with the bucket, the larger bucket. So the larger bucket, I can't lock it in this way because the ribbing is there. So you can see here, all right, I put this down in here, and there's this ribbing here, so I can't really lock this in because these ribs are in the way. So in hindsight, if you do get a bucket for this thing, which you should, then make sure it doesn't have these ribs on top. Make sure it's got a rim, like this rim that's here. Make sure there's no ribs. That'll be much more helpful. But it works just as fine here. You could also probably shove some stuff in here because the ribbing actually does help a little bit in terms of it staying where it's supposed to go, but it's not as tight as it could have been. So anyway, what you do is you put this on top. You put clothing inside. They say up to 5 or 6 shirts in here, and I think I've put about 6 or 7, and it did have some trouble. And I'll tell you what that trouble is in a minute. But you put the clothes on top, then you fill it with water. I put this entire thing in the bathtub, and I actually use this smaller bucket to fill it up, just because I don't like to try to move the bucket after I've set the whole thing up. So I'll just use this, fill this with water, dump it in here, and then I put a little bit of detergent, ever so slightly small, little bit of detergent. You don't need a lot. It's this is only so big, and you plug it in, and there is a kill switch kind of looking thing over here. Okay, that I think when you get it, it's off. So just pay attention to this. That it's turned on, and then you set the timer. You just twist the thing, and it'll set for 15 minutes. I don't think there's any way to reset the timer. You just kind of have to let it go. But you can, of course, hit the kill switch if you want and let it go off. And then I highly recommend that you stay in the room watching it or be in the area watching it, because it's a little aggressive, honestly. It does a lot of stuff. I'm not going to show you here because I have a lot of electronics here that I don't want water splashing around, because water will splash around, so you have to do it in your bathroom. And there is a max fill line here that it's registered up on the top here that you shouldn't fill it higher than, but you should fill the water higher than the rotor on the bottom. So make sure that the rotor is completely submerged inside of the water. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of water coming out of the bottle of the bucket. So make it somewhere between the max and higher than the rotor. Also, it says in several different places, and also you should probably be knowing, of course, to not get the motor wet that's on top here, but the rest of the thing below the max line is fine to be submerged. Also, of course, do not put this in water either. So anyway, 15 minutes, you're going to see clothes rotate. The first time I did it was just underwear and socks, which actually seems to be really good for this thing because all those items are pretty small. But when I put the shirts in earlier this week, because those items are a little bit larger, they end up getting like tangled together and more bulky together. So it ends up being a little bit more challenging for the rotor to kind of move that stuff, especially the long sleeve shirt. I had a long sleeve shirt in here along with some of the shorter sleeve stuff, and the long sleeve stuff was just getting tied around other stuff. So something to keep in mind of. I don't really know how to necessarily solve for that, but just something to keep in mind. I think this is probably really good for socks and underwear, and considering we're in a pandemic and we're not really going anywhere, this is probably mostly fine for that kind of stuff. And I will probably just like take my larger stuff to my family's house or my fiance's house to get washed, in a near future. Just so that I, don't need to lug it around the neighborhood looking for the laundromat. So anyway, going back to this though, 15 minutes, the timer will go off, it'll stop, and in the instructions it tells you that this motor needs to wait for about a half hour to cool down, basically, before you can use it again. In my experience using it, I've used it 3 times so far. What I think is the best thing to do is, I have the second bucket here that I showed you. What I do is, After it's done running, I take this thing out and get the clothes out of the bucket, and I'll rinse them underneath the bath tap water. So I try to rinse all the detergent out, and then I'll put those clothes into this bucket. Then I'll dump this water in the bathtub, and I wait half an hour for this thing to cool down. And then I'll put those clothes back into this bucket, fresh water, do it another 15 minutes, and then take that stuff out, put it back in this button. After another rinse, put it back in this bucket, and then clean all of this up, dumping the water, putting this away, and then hang dry. I hang dry in the bathtub with my rack for the entire day, basically, and they get mostly dry then. Every once in a while, maybe I will come in for like with the hair dryer and just kind of like do it when it's getting like really close to being dry. It's taken mostly 2 days for clothes to dry for the most part. For the second day, they're pretty dry. Some of the stuff is still damp, but they're pretty dry. So I'll actually put the clothes in front of the window in the studio, actually right over here, to try to get some sunlight to finish off the drying. They're not dripping at that point. They're just kind of maybe a little damp. So I put them in front of the window to dry a little bit more than that, and that's usually a 2-day drying process for me. But again, if you put it against the hair dryer or have your own dryer, other drying solutions, you will probably be able to get them drier faster. One other note about this thing. So this thing is very heavy on top. It's top heavy. So storing it is a little bit cumbersome, in my opinion, because, well, basically, this kind of like could tip. And even if it's in this one, I feel even more of a possibility of this potentially tipping. So when it's filled with water, it's fine, right? There's a lot of weight on the water, so this won't fall over. But when it's not full of water and you're just kind of storing it, it's a little bit cumbersome. I really don't enjoy that. Let me just put this bottle down for a second. So yeah, so when you take this thing out after you've done doing a wash, you have the big handle, which is great, but after you're not holding it anymore, like all the weight is over here, so you could even see that it kind of just like wants to like angle itself because the weight's back here, and it's just very incorrectly balanced to really put anywhere. So taking it out of the bucket, I try to like set it like this, but it doesn't set straight like this. It wants to fall over this way, and as soon as it falls over this way, because this is round, it'll fall over this way. So it kind of just like, it just feels very like difficult to store. That's, I think, the thing that I'm trying to get at. And of course, you would want to store it with the bucket. So if the bucket is full of water, that's not a good thing either, right? Because you're trying to basically do a little bit of cleanup to prepare for the next part of the laundry cycle. One of the things that I've been playing around with is that I have a towel rack in my bathroom. Actually, I have several towel racks, but I have a towel rack that's attached to the wall in my bathroom. And this hook thing here can actually fit in the towel rack. So that's been actually really helpful in this, is that you just I'm able to put it on the towel rack, facing the wall facing this way, and it stays there. And I think that is really good. And I figure in the event that I get a new place, I would want to continue being able to store it in that way when I'm just kind of like managing the buckets. When you're done with all the bucket stuff and you've done with the water, you can, then I could just shove this whole thing right into the bucket, just like that, with the wire, just like this, right? And then you're done, right? And then the bucket has its nice handle. You take the whole thing, and you don't have to worry about the unit kind of flopping around and having the bucket fall over and stuff like that. So that's it. That's what I wanted to show you today. It's been helpful so far. A friend of mine actually who read a review, who saw me post this thing on Instagram running, she read a review saying that it only lasted 12 times. I don't know. I only have done it 3 times so far. I'm expecting to do it shortly because, again, I'm only able to put 5 or 6 items in there, and that's basically a week's worth of stuff for the most part, or maybe even half a week's worth of stuff. So it does, like, I do have to use it more often. I'll actually probably use it later today just to keep up with the essentials. But it was under $100, which is I think really good for a washing machine or agitator, whatever you want to call it, and to not have to hand wash stuff. I think that's really helpful. But um, another thing I also, before I forget, is again, watching it while it's running or being very close to where it is when it's running is super important because even filling the water up to the top, especially with all the shirts that I had in there was water like halfway through the cycle just splashing all over the bathroom. It only happened once when it was specifically with the shirts because I guess because it was much larger and there was a lot more jostling around. But definitely pay attention to it. If the thing sounds like it's struggling, just turn it off, put your hand inside, and screw around with where the placement of the clothing is, and then turn it back on. And I mean it with this kill switch on the side. Definitely don't put your hand in when it's running. So just turn it off first, real quick, um, and then you can, adjust stuff so that it could run again. The timer will still continue to go though. Like I said earlier, I don't think there's any way of resetting the timer. Um, yeah, but it seems to have been doing fine. I've actually been wearing other clothes from there since, and it's been good. So I so far would recommend it. Give it a shot if you um, have stuff that you're already hand washing that you want to go ahead and maybe stop hand washing, or if you have a laundry room that has decided to like close for no reason. I'm sure there's a reason. We just don't know what it is, and I don't know when it's going to open. So this is where we're at. Anyway, that's all I want to show you for today, and I'll catch you next time. See you.